They played all different. They played all, and all the kids. My Yanko Klein, all my friends. I went into his torah. I didn't understand one word. I just liked looking at him. He was such Gedalia. And then he came to my house one Shabbos, and he came for a Shabbos to my house, and there was a Yid by the name of Rebbe Moshe Groeneman, who was a Breslau Chassid that was very, very sick. You ever heard the name Moshe Groeneman? He was in the hospital, and he walked. He was not a well person, Rebbe Gedalia. He walked from 43rd Street and 16th Avenue to my mountains. It was a Mahalach. He went halfway Shabbos afternoon, and he remembered that he forgot to say thank you to my mother. He realized he's not coming back. So he walked back to say thank you, and then went back to, this is one of the stories, my mother says this story all the time. He was, but I had a Murdig Mashiach at him. I didn't understand anything. I used to ask, when he came to my house for Shabbos, I remember, I would ask him questions. I even remember one of the questions I asked him was like, baby questions, but the way he answered me was like, I asked him the biggest question in the world. He was loving, very, very loving. And I felt a very connection. Anyway, when he passed away, Rebbe Nachman came the first time, I was like, okay, because my father was crying. After Rebbe Nachman passed away, my father was saying, now I don't have anybody. I had a Rebbe, I don't have anybody. And I was stupid. I should have used them out. And it went into my head, words that my father said, that I was stupid, I should have used them out. So I said, I'm going to use it. I'm not going to be like my father. I'm not going to do that stupidity. Believe me, first I'll tell you, fast forward, I was stupider than my father. My father got a lot more from Rebbe than I got from Rebbe Nachman. But I did have a kesher with him. He was my Rebbe for sure. He was my Masada Kedushin. And I have a lot of stories with him. I am a big chutzpah, and I had, which in a way works l'toivosai, because I was able to I challenged him a lot. We would have a lot of debates and a lot of arguments. He was always right, but I pretended that I wasn't makabel, or I really thought I wasn't makabel. Now I'm starting to see what a fool I was. But he was a very special person. He was a special human being. Before Breslau V'Chazad, he was about midas. His midas were like everything. He was so meyushevdig. I don't think I saw him many, many times. Buddy, you've seen Rebbe Nachman many times. Did you ever see him not? I've seen him angry also, but with Ishav Adas. I never saw him, I never ever saw him not say something just like that. He watched his words, he counted his words. I had many stories. I had one story with him when I was 17 years old. So then I came to 16 years old. I went to Breslau Yeshiva. I went to Tzfas. I didn't have family, so I went to Tzfas for Shabbos. That was all I knew. Nachal Neveya, that was my, as growing up, that's all I knew. I went to Tzfas for Shabbos, and I went to Rebbe Nachman. I used to go to him, and I would go, I would stay there for Shabbos, and Sunday, before I went back to Yeshiva, we had an off Shabbos, so he didn't have to be back till Sunday night. I would stay in the morning. We would, Matzah Shabbos, we'd go to his house, we'd bring his mirrors, and he would talk, but I didn't get the opportunity. Sunday was the time where the Bachrim went to talk to him, and I waited online. I went to talk to him, and like after 5, 10, 15 minutes, whatever the time was, he would say all the time, Zol Deibish to helfen, and you knew that's closure. That's when Zol Deibish to helfen was the thing. So that was like the goodbye, okay, and everybody walked out. I remember with Shabbos Chanukah, was like the third or fourth time or second or third, I don't remember how many times, but I was there multiple times. And after 5-10 minutes, he's telling me he's Zol Deibish to helfen, and I said, I'm not finished. I didn't finish yet. And I started crying. I said to him, my father told me that your father would sit with him for hours and listen to his problems and talk to him. And you, every time I come, I feel you're rejecting me. You're pushing me away. So, and I said, I don't want to hear the words, Zol Deibish to helfen. I said, I was crying. I said to him, I came because I have problems. I want to talk to you my problems. So he apologized. He told me that really, really, He made me wait. He said he had to put on tefillin, and it was shkia. He put on 3 pairs. He put on another pair of tefillin. He put on shemush rabbos. So he said I have to put on tefillin, but after I put on tefillin, I'll wait for me. From that, I was 17 years old, and he died 5 years ago, so I was 49. So from 17 to 49, how many years is that? 32 years. I went to him, I don't know, a lot of times. I don't know, over 100 times since then. I don't think he ever closed I had to be the one to close. Whenever I sat with him, he never closed the conversation. He never said the words, Zol Davish Dalvin. That's a godless of a person. That's a god. He remembered my trauma, my thing. He accepted it from a 17-year-old pisher. You understand? And he's running a community, building a community, and I come in like I'm the only thing that's on the world on his mind, and he's got to give me the time. That was one story that really, really stood out with me about his godless of midas. I many times asked him advice, and I spoke to him about many different things, and I was always trying to get the Shia. I would always try to get the EBGB answer. You know the EBGB answer. You know, EBGB means you wanna, the guy with the telephone in Himmel that's gonna tell you. And he never ever. By the way, his derech, and I think anybody who knew him, with me for sure it was like that. He never told me what to do. I would ask him a question. He never said, do this or do this. He always left you space to make choice, to have free choice. And he would talk out the tzedakah, he would tell you the thing, and you were able to tell from the way he was talking out the tzedakah, this is what I think. I asked him about naming my kids, what name, this name, that. He never told me this is what. When I told him this is what I want, he would tell me, okay, it's good, or you should be Moisef a name. He didn't tell me ever do this or this. I had a money story with him once that was the last year that Beryl Kremer was running Oman, and all the years Rabbi Yankov Meir was behind him, and the money was coming pretty much from Rabbi Yankov Meir, from I forgot the guy's name. Who was the guy then? Right, Mermelstein was running it then, and he got the money from there. But it was last year that he was at the end he resigned or whatever. They kicked him out. Whatever happened. And it was Erev Rosh Hashanah, it was like 3 weeks before Rosh Hashanah. It was right after he got his transplant. And I don't think he even went. Oh no, he ended up going. He did go. And anyway, so 3 weeks before Reb Luzer, I get a call from Uzi. Then at the time was the thing. I get a call. Reb Luzer asking you to come down. Come down. He said, "Vusat Zama the Rebbe's Rosh Hashanah." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "We need $300,000, and otherwise they're not going to put on the lights. There's not going to be electricity, and we don't have anything." So I said to Reb Luzer, "Okay, what do you want from me?" He says, "We have to be nice about. We have to. It's the Rebbe's Rosh Hashanah Mamish. That's one thing I can be made every Rosh Hashanah, no matter who was running it. He was digging about Rosh Hashanah, always about what's going to be about Oman Rosh Hashanah. He was always involved in running. Anyway, got to marry the Gemais with my wife. So anyway, I came home. I told him, my wife, I don't know. Reb Luzer called me. I got to help him, and I don't know what to do. At the time, I had just refinanced my house to be able to do construction in my house, and I had a few $100,000 to be able to that I got from the mortgage, but it was all designated to refinancing my house. So my wife said to me, "So what's the question? Reb Luzer needs the money. You got to give him the money." I said, "Huh? we building a house. The Rebbe's Rosh Hashanah. You're not going to give the." So I went back to Reb Luzer. And he said to me. So I told him, "Listen, he says, give it. I take achrayus. I take responsibility." Yeah. Afterwards, Beryl was in a really hard situation. And it was getting difficult to get the money out. And pinked, you want to get crazy? I got a stop order a week, or either a week before, a week. My wife will remember exactly. I got a stop order to do the work. And it took 6 months take off the stop order. So for 6 months I was running after the money, trying to get the money. And it came 6 months later when I was ready to do it, and he wasn't able. Rebbe Nachman ended up paying. Yeah. Rebbe Nachman ended up. Now I don't know what he did with Ber, but he was going through a very hard time. But every penny. I had another money story with him, and a different thing of Arvis that I signed Arvis, and he back then I couldn't handle it anymore. And I remember it was Erev Chodesh and this, and somehow I ended up a Noman. Rebbe Nachman was also a Noman. Rebbe Nachman told me about the Rebbe's scene. I take responsibility, and he took the whole. I had done most of the payments, but there was still whatever was left over. He took over. So he was. Those were the Gashmis, the good thing. But I think you learn more from I'll tell you something. The only story I ever had with him, that he told me something that I felt was like what I always wanted, like the only time he told me was 9/11. 9/11. You were on the flight. You were with me on the flight. 9/11. Did anybody go to Oman on 9/11? Okay, so 9/11. We got to Oman like 3-4 hours before Mamish, before Yonah, and I went into Rebbe Nachman, and my father passed away 5 weeks before that. Chayav. My father passed away. I get there, and Rebbe Nachman, the simcha that he had, he was mamish, the simcha that I came, that we made it, and he made it through. I was davening for you. He tells me I was davening for you, and he takes me to the window. Crazy story. I'm telling you a story that happened. And he says, and he looks out of the window, and he says, "You know why?" In Yiddish, he tells me, "You know why you had such a tiltal akosha? So that your father should be here. Dein Tata is due. Your father is here." That was the only time ever that he said something, and I looked at him. Okay, like he never spoke like that. It wasn't his way of speaking. Your father's here. The tiltal akosha that you went through was that your father should be here. That's what those were his words. But then I had when I used to come to Jack Coyne, and he saw me coming, he would say, "Oh, Nachman, don't do this. When you come, the Rav doesn't go to sleep." And we would spend nights, mamish full nights, from whenever I came till Vesikin. I had a few times that I went, and Tzfas I had it a few times also. I would spend full nights. And he gave me a lot of petch. Let me tell you something. He was right before he got his lung transplant, a week before his lung transplant, I got a call from Uzi. The Rav wants you and your wife to come down. Okay, he come down, and he was really, really, really sick. Well,
he was summoned.
I was summoned. A few times I got the summon. Yeah, I got summoned. So I came with my wife. He was very sick. He was so sick. He would have coughing attacks that were mamish. You felt like his neshama was coming out. Do you remember what he was going through? I mean, his emunah was that. If you want to talk about his betachan and his emunah, he told me sick with an oxygen mask, mamish. And this time he couldn't. He started having a coughing attack. He couldn't stop. And then he says, "Ich kriech auf the gleiche Wand. Ich weiß nicht, was it is." He was going crazy. I'm crawling on the straight walls. I'm crawling. I don't know what to do with myself. He went through a very, very, very challenging time. Anyway, so he said and as he's there, he's talking to us, and he's giving us mussar, but not do his way of giving mussar. It was very loving, very, very loving, but very to the point. He got to his point, and he told me a few things and my wife a few things. And when we walked out, we felt that was his tzavatos. That was it. This is the last time. I thought for sure this is the last time I'm seeing him. And that Shabbat, that was Sunday night, that Shabbos, he was mamish. Anybody who saw it, he was mamish al safa mavis. I'm not a doctor to be able to say it, but a person, he was an unimaginable pain, but always miyushiv. and he would have a coughing attack, and he would go right back to where he was, as if that could have been a 5-minute coughing attack, and he went right back to where he was talking to you before, as if nothing happened. It's very interesting. The night that he passed away, so a friend of mine, I said, was involved. There was a whole thing that was happening. My friend, he was the last one to see him. I have a friend in Eretz Yisrael. I told him to go speak to Rebbe Nachman. He went to Rebbe Nachman. He said he was very, very schwach, but he was on point. They were dealing with a big situation, a get and a whole crazy situation. He was completely on point. They left his house, and by the time they got back to Bnei Brak, they got the besura that he was nifter. So it was Mamish, I think he was the last person that met him. But he said his Yishuv Hadas, his son Gedalia told me that when he passed away, so when he started geisesing, so he was pouring water on him. He started touching him, and the last words his father told him is, "Don't touch me. You're not allowed to touch me." He knew, like he was conscious, completely. He was special person. He was an ois gabed. I'll tell you another thing. He was an ois gabed, the person, and he was completely. If you ever heard him say Torah, he never was machadish. He only said. So I used to ask him many times. I asked him, and he told me, "No, let's listen to what the Rebbe says. Listen to what the Rebbe says. Torah afterwards, much as Shabbos, the way we work is Shalshudas. He would say over, and he would say his niggin. You didn't have to really even hear his Torah. His niggin, the way he said the Torah, you were in a Torah. Just you didn't have to hear what. It didn't make a difference what he's saying. A person that should talk with such bittul to the Rebbe. Anyway, he was definitely. I wasn't a Talmud, but he was definitely my Rebbe, and he was definitely my Rebbe, and he was Schusay Yogan Aleinu. Another thing is Koyach HaTfilah. You see his Koyach HaTfilah, but many times he told me. He told me once on, I forgot what the thing was, but he said, I davened for you. I don't remember what tefillah, but I said a tefillah for you 30 times. Something like that, 30 times to say. I don't say for myself 30 times, but he said I'm saying he was real. He was real. Everything about him was real. There was nothing, he was only looking for emes. You couldn't talk to him if you weren't talking to emesdik. You understand? He was just real, and everything he told you, he was always. I listen. I don't know if you see. You get the minute clips. They're great. I hear such depth now that I didn't hear then. Okay, yeah, it's the Breslov language, and I thought, okay, you know, and I remember him telling me, "Was bist du so verdeiget? Sei nicht verdeiget." You know, and then the famous story with your brother with the pajamas. That's like a classic story. He was while he was sick, so he stayed by Nachman Lichter's house, and his daughter Ruchi at the time, she saw he was walking out to the bathroom or something. I don't know if I'm saying the story exactly. He said she was embarrassed to wear. She wouldn't come upstairs. She was embarrassed. He saw her, and she was wearing her pajamas. She was embarrassed to see him. So he ran back upstairs. He called her back. He says, "Why?" He says, "Because I'm wearing pajamas." So he went back to his room and he put on pajamas. I walked out in pajamas. Pajamas. That's a godless of a person. This guy had enough on his head, and he was completely concerned with this. Ben Adam Lechaver was bar none. He was at a different level. We just didn't understand it, and. But Baruch Hashem, we take the things that we got and we learn. Well, Tmimis Pshitas, when we're learning the Torah of Tmimis Pshitas, it was a big chacham, but his nahagas was Kvod Hashem, Tmimis Pshitas. If there's someone that I saw this by, real Tmimis, he was a very, very special individual. He really cared about the Rebbe. He really loved the Rebbe, and he taught us how to be mevatel ourselves to the Rebbe. So. Take the things that we learned, give it over to the next generation, tell everybody that there is a way we can be miyushiv There is a way. He would tell me. I remember I came to him with a problem. I was challenged once. I was challenged many times, but I was challenged one time. I came to him with a problem. So he tells me, he gives me what he thinks an eitzah, but then he tells me, "As geschrigen zum Rebbeinu Shalom? Did you scream? Yeah, Reis and Schrei. I remember Schrei zum Eibishten, Schrei zum Eibishten." And you would think that a guy, he was like this miyushavdige person, says, "Geh Reis in the Feld and Schrei, Kollel Kollel." And then he showed me Likutei Moharan many times. The Rebbe Zogdir. Oh, he was a bucky in Likutei. I heard this, by the way. I'm trying to remember who I heard. I heard that at 16. He told me that when I was 13 years old, he says, "Kennst du the torah of a Namen?" He says, "Ben ich gefahren mein bar mitzvah, aber gewiss jede torah, every name of every torah, not the number of the torah, every name of the torah." And then he told me, "By 16 Jahr, aber ich kenn shakla v'taya." He would say torah. I witnessed this many times, Baal Peh, and he would change it. Sometimes he would make even a mistake on the lashon, kemat, say it exactly, but he would sit there with his eyes closed in front of a sefer, but he would say it Baal Peh. And he told me, he told me but I heard from others that was known, even as a bacher, he was learning Breslov Yeshiva, even as a bacher, that he knew, it was known. Likutei Moharan, he knew backwards and forwards. And everything that he said, he sourced in the torahs. Either in anything that he said, he would show you. The Rebbe Zok Tazoy, the Rebbe Zok Tazoy, the Rebbe Zok Tazoy. He was, Chaval al da'avda v'loy mishtagchen. Schusser yogan aleinu. Come. Remind me that he told me, I wanted, he was the mile by Dubi. He was the mile. And he reminded me, so I told him, I want you to be the sandik. And there is a way to be sandik, the mile could be the sandik also. So he says, no. So I said, I have no one else to give it to. So he says, you take it. He told me to take it. I took it. That was the first time I was sandik. Then I had Einikos.